Welcome to Barbells and Motherhood. I'm your host, Julianne Bali, owner of Motherhood Barbell. I'm a pregnancy and postpartum athleticism coach, CrossFit Level 1, and mom of 3. On this podcast, we discuss all things pre- and postnatal exercise, bust common myths such as don't lift over 20 pounds, educate about core and pelvic health, and explore all facets of motherhood. If you're a pregnant or postpartum mom that likes to throw around barbells, want to learn more about your pelvic floor and core, and looking for real research-based exercise guidance in any season of motherhood, this podcast is for you. All right, welcome back to another episode of Barbells and Motherhood. Today I have my dear friend Macey Leatham. I'm so excited that she's joining me today. And Macey, go ahead and give us an intro to who you are and what you do.
Yeah, so I'm a registered dietitian. I've been practicing for about 2 years, about 2 years. I specialize in intuitive eating, body image, disordered eating, like binge eating, and I've done a lot with pregnancy and postpartum nutrition, and it kind of just amazed me how much those intertwined. I started more in the pregnancy and postpartum space, and it was pretty apparent within my first couple of clients that focusing on body image and relationships with food and intuitive eating was absolutely necessary to create really healthy relationships with food, and how much pregnancy and postpartum really throw that off and make us do kind of stupid things when it comes to our food and nutrition and our bodies, because there's a lot of changes. So
awesome. Yeah, when I met you, you were in more of the prenatal space exclusively because we connected on Instagram. I think you were like featured on like Idaho Moms or something.
yeah.
And then I commented on something, and then you like messaged me and you were like, "Who are you? I need to know who you are, and we need to work together." And
Sounds about right.
I was in Texas at the time for a few months, and I was like, "Oh, I'm not even in the state, but like I'm coming back soon, and like we should meet up." And so that's kind of how we became friends. And then we went on to working together on a birth workshop with our friend Katie, which is the birth bar workshop in Idaho Falls, Idaho. That was super fun. And you shared really, really awesome things about pregnancy nutrition. And then I was sharing about postpartum, and that was a super cool experience. That was the weekend that I came up to you and I was like, "Hey, I'm pretty sure that I'm pregnant." And you're like, "What?" No. And it turned out I was pregnant. That was a fun weekend. Anyway, super awesome.
That was hilarious. Nothing, definitely not what I expected you to tell me in that moment.
What a fitting place to find out or to suspect that I was pregnant, right, at a birth workshop. No, so it's been super awesome connecting with you again and to be able to chat about all these things today. And so you brought up that you are now focused more on intuitive eating in general, not specifically in prenatal. And so I just wanted to start with, what is intuitive eating and how can that look in our life?
Yeah. So I was thinking about this question because you sent it to me before. And intuitive eating is so broad that I was trying to like tune it down. But like the line that I came up with is intuitive eating is tuning into what your body is asking for and tuning out what's distracting you from listening to your body. So things like appearance changes, weight changes, tracking food guilt, labeling food as good and bad, just to name a few, all of which are disordered eating patterns. And that's really just the basis of what intuitive eating is reconnecting with what our body wants and accepting that even when it's not culturally acceptable as the way things should be. It's based on a book by Evelyn Tribole and Elise Reich. I hope I'm saying their names right. They're awesome. It came out in the 90s and initially, and it's been exploding since then. A kind of a slow build, but it's definitely something that's becoming more popular and more accepted. And reading the book was actually a huge turning point for me. I read it in college. And it just made so much sense. Like I don't have a huge like history of disordered eating or issues with my body or an eating disorder, but it never really resonated with me to like track my food and micromanage things and diet. Like I've never I've restricted a few things occasionally here and there, but I've never like full on dieted for months at a time. I love food way too much to do that to myself.
Yeah.
But it really pointed out to me of how prevalent some of those things that we think are normal. We think, it's normal to eat a donut and then feel the need to go burn off or make jokes about burning off the donut while we're eating the donut. And things like that just aren't a healthy way to look at food. And so even before I got into pregnancy nutrition, that was something that I wanted to focus on and wanted to incorporate into pregnancy and postpartum nutrition. And it just makes life so much more enjoyable. I feel like we were never meant to spend all of our time tracking and counting and micromanaging and weighing out our food and stressing about how our bodies look and when we set all of that kind of aside, but still obviously take time to respect and take care of our bodies, because it doesn't disregard that at all. You just have so much more mental energy and time and freedom to really enjoy your life and enjoy motherhood, enjoy your kids. And then we're also not passing on disordered eating patterns to our kids, because most of our disordered eating, at least in my experience with all of my clients, most of it comes from our moms or our caregivers or the other women around us. And so making the shift in your life helps generations make the shift. And I just think that's so powerful that we can do as women.
I think there's been this huge movement for especially our age group, around our age group, of we're all becoming moms now. We're all, this new generation is having kids, and we're all having these well, not all, but some of us are having these realizations of, hold on a second, what were these beliefs that I had growing up, and why was I told this about food, and why did I always have to clear my plate again, and like all of these different things that now we almost have like this awakening that we can now, like you were saying, completely change what we pass on to our kids. And I practice that every day, because for years I did experience a lot of those disordered patterns of eating and restriction and good versus bad. And it's almost embarrassing to me now to think that, like, I don't want to like talk down on anyone that's still going through this process, but now what I know now is, how did I get to my late 20s? I'm 31 now, but to my late 20s before I ever had the concept in my head of there's no such thing as good versus bad food. Like, that's not a thing. And I was, for years we were like, oh, I can't have that, it's bad or whatever. And now we cannot pass that on to our kids is so liberating.
Well, and I think it's just like, I think when we talk about good and bad foods, it's not even so much of like this food is evil, which sometimes when we say good and bad foods, like, it's like, no, I don't think any food is evil. But when we talk about like, oh, I can't eat that, it's got too much sugar in it, or I can't eat that, like, it's not fat free.
I know how you feel about fat.
Yeah.
It's good stuff.
But when we like make jokes about that, and that's super common, or even just, the different diet phases, we had the Atkins phase, we had the low fat phase, we have the keto phase, and doing those phases, they're fad diets, whether they say they are or not. Doing those fad diets really puts into our brain of carbs are bad, fat is bad, fruit is bad. Like, how did we get here? How did we get to where fruit is bad? But like, that is something that truly seeps deep into us and affects our ability to listen to our body and tune into what it really needs and what it's asking for and what we enjoy and is going to improve the quality of our lives.
Yeah, and that becomes especially apparent as we were mentioning before during pregnancy when our nutrients are pretty important. We are growing an entire human. And do you want to talk on that point just for a little bit of, why pregnancy is an important time to be able to either overcome some of this disorder eating or allowing ourselves to eat a variety of foods?
Absolutely. Well, where to even start? Your nutrition needs during pregnancy, and this might be just like, well, duh. Your nutrition needs during pregnancy are so high. And the more research that's coming out, the more we're realizing just how high they are. And like you said, you're growing a human, you're growing a brain and organs and all of these things basically out of nothing. And in order for you to function well and for your baby to develop and grow well, and I think a lot of times we're like, well, I turned out fine and my mom ate whatever, or I ate whatever with my first baby and everything turned out okay. But our bodies specifically function so much better when we're feeding them a lot and feeding them well and giving them that variety. And variety itself is the biggest predictor or one of the big predictors of long-term health. The more variety that you have in your meals and in your food, I don't want to say diet, but in your overall diet, the more likely you are to be meeting your nutrition needs and getting all of the little tiny nutrients, because there's still nutrients that we don't fully understand and we don't know exactly what they do or how much we need, but getting a wide variety helps you meet all of those little needs. And then postpartum, your needs are even higher than they are during pregnancy, yeah, especially if you're breastfeeding. And so there's just so much need for food during pregnancy. And for a lot of women, it's extra hard for them to reach because there's so much focus on not gaining weight pre-pregnancy or losing weight pre-pregnancy, which is like the worst thing you can do to prepare for pregnancy, in my opinion. I guess I should throw that out there, but
disclaimer.
Yeah, malnourishing your body pre-pregnancy is not a good idea.
Right.
Anyway, but it's hard for a lot of women to make that shift of, we were in diet land for so long before we were getting pregnant. And now it's like, I'm free to gain weight, but then you also don't want to gain too much weight. And there's the stress around, I know I should be happy about gaining weight because that means my body is doing what it's supposed to, but I don't like it. Mm-hmm. And it's triggering all the emotions of body image. And it kind of makes us realize it's a really good predictor of like where your body image actually is at. If pregnancy rocks your world body image wise and you're feeling really, really crappy about the way your body looks, that's a really good indication that maybe you need to do some work on your body image and work through that so that intuitive eating and listening to your body can become more natural. Because body image is such a ingrained portion of that. If we all respected our bodies and treated our bodies well and had positive body image, or at least neutral body image, then dieting would just die. No one would do it.
Yeah. And to speak on the point of body image during pregnancy, something I had become acutely aware of where my body image was with my most recent pregnancy, my third pregnancy, to the point where I decided not to weigh myself during pregnancy at all. My midwife was like, that's fine. We have other metrics. If there's some reason that we need that specific metric, we'll let you know, but it never came up. And that was the best thing for my mental health that I could have done, because I was going through a lot of other crazy transitions in my life that I was like, that's just not information that I need right now. And so I just want to throw that out there. And you've talked about this before on your Instagram of you don't have to weigh yourself during pregnancy, or you don't have to look or whatever. If your provider is as such that you're has to have a number, then just have them not tell you or whatever. And so I wanted to ask you, like, how are you approaching your body image and all of those aspects in your current pregnancy? Because you are now currently pregnant with your third.
Yes. So I'm not weighing myself, and my midwife was the same way. She even said she doesn't have research, but case studies, like sorry, what am I trying to say? Individual experiences, and quite a few of them from some other research that was being collected, like side data, I guess is a better way to put that. She had side data information that weighing yourself during pregnancy actually increases risks of postpartum depression and eating disorders postpartum.
That is
Which I thought
fascinating.
was, but it also makes so much sense. Like,
Yeah.
if you're very aware of that number and you've been taught for your whole life that that number shouldn't go up, then pregnancy can be really stressful. And then it adds that pressure of, I got to make the weight go away and get back to pre-weight as fast as possible. But for mine, sorry, I'm really good at getting sidetracked. For mine, I'm not tracking my weight. Like you said, with preeclampsia risks, and I think that's the main one. Or just making sure that like your baby is growing. There's other ways to measure that, and there's other much better indicators when those complications are going to occur. Yeah. And so if weight is something that's triggering for you, and chances are it is, most of us it's a little triggering for, even if it's you're working on it and it's getting better, like it's still hard sometimes to see that number. But you can totally opt out of getting weights. Or if, like you said, if your provider is very adamant that they need that number, you can stand on the scale backwards and ask for blind weights, where they don't talk about it. If you need to be like my dietitian says, feel free to message me and I'll gladly be your dietitian that says. But it can be really helpful to not focus on that. I was even talking to some friends, and her sister is pregnant with twins and doesn't want to get over 200 pounds and is really stressing about that. And it's like, because she gets uncomfortable, or she feels that she gets uncomfortable around 200 pounds. And it's like, but you could focus on so many other things. But if you let that number define, I'm comfortable at 190, but I'm not comfortable at 200, or then, like with what you do, like you're running the risk of decreasing your muscle mass, and you're running the risk of underfeeding your body when it's carrying twins.
Yeah.
And so there's just so many things that looking at that number and focusing on that number distract us from all of the other actual health promoting behaviors that we could be doing instead.
Yeah. So let's talk about some of those with you, because you just shared before we started recording that you feel amazing during this pregnancy, and you're like, is this a fluke? Like, is this real life? So what are the things that you're doing, and what do you think are some of the things that are contributing to you feeling so awesome?
Yeah, I think, and I was thinking about this before we got on too, and kind of comparing it. It's a fairly stark contrast from my first pregnancy, which also wasn't bad. But as far as food goes, like with my first pregnancy, I was very early in my education and very easily swayed towards just different information. I cut out Coke, like Coca-Cola. And
the drink.
To be clear. And I've definitely like seen and kind of felt some repercussions of binge restrict cycle there, and worked through some of that. I also watched a documentary on veganism and thought I was going to be vegan, and that was going to be the way.
So that's an experience we've all had then.
Oh my gosh. Do not get your information from Joe Rogan or documentaries. Like, sorry, I just have to throw that out there.
No, it's okay. Anyway.
But yeah, and so I was very easily swayed and things like that, and very much felt the pressure that I think a lot of us feel during pregnancy of, I'm not just taking care of me now, I'm taking care of this baby, and it has to be perfect.
Mm-hmm.
But with this pregnancy, I feel like I've been super graceful with myself. I've had so much variety um, in my diet, in the way I'm eating. Um, During first trimester, particularly, like vegetables suck during first trimester. Like they just do. Um, they just do. And I focused, and in previous pregnancies, it was just like, okay, I'm not gonna eat vegetables. It is what it is. But in this pregnancy, I really focused on swapping out vegetables with fruit to try and still have some of that color. And there was a couple different places that I felt like vegetables. I could eat like a cafe Rio salad or like a pizza with lots of vegetables on it. But making little adjustments like that of still trying to get a wide variety in, but also not criticizing myself or not being hard on myself when that just wasn't possible and wasn't feasible. Um, and I've also exercised a lot more during this pregnancy than I have any other pregnancy. Um, I did a fair amount of like snowshoeing when I was pregnant with my first. Um, but that was like once a week.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas like now I'm fairly consistent when I'm not sick. First trimester hit me pretty hard, but I was able to work out quite a bit through that. I did get 2 death colds. I don't know what they were. I don't know, but colds that like knocked me out for like 2 weeks.
Ugh.
And so when I'm not like that, like I'm fairly consistent, like 4 times a week at the gym, doing some running. I've started building my running miles up again the last couple weeks, but mostly like lifting. Um, and then to support that and baby, I eat a lot of food. I don't know calorie wise or anything like that because I don't track calories exactly how much I'm eating, but I eat a lot of food and I just feel really good. Like
Mm.
I feel like I have lots of energy. I feel like my body is gaining muscle and getting stronger. And it's just functioning really, really well. And so yeah, it's kind of
Yeah.
it's a funny game to play of like finding what foods baby tolerates
Yeah.
and trying to get a wide variety in with all of that. But it makes such a huge difference of just your body functioning well, having good energy during pregnancy, meeting your nutrition needs, being able to exercise and move your body. If you're not eating enough, exercising is going to suck.
Yeah.
Like it's just going to suck the life out of you. And then you've got a baby sucking the life out of you and exercise sucking the life out of you. And it's just not sustainable.
Yeah.
And so I feel like people very much underestimate how much food we need in general. And then during pregnancy, it's just more. But when you let go of expectations and preconceived notions around food, it's so much easier to tune into that and really give your body what it needs.
Yeah. I think that, yeah, it's interesting because a concept that I think is crazy for some people to grasp at first is that it's more unhealthy for you to freak out over eating something than the actual thing that you're going to be eating, whether it's a cake or whatever it is. You know, like that mental strain is not healthy or helpful for you. And so you are, doing exactly that, and that you are not stressing out over food. You're eating a variety of things. You're, as you would call it, chill. You're a chill mama. That's what you would call your program was called Chill Mama, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah. So you're like practicing what you preach all the time to your clients, and you're like, yeah, this feels great. And of course, there is always going to be like, the things we can't control, like when you got super sick, and things are going to happen, and whatever. But there's so much within our control that can change the way things are going. And I'm so happy for you. I'm so glad that you're feeling so good. And I absolutely know that exercise is helping so much in a lot of the aches and pains that can physically come from pregnancy. And there's so many different things that can happen that I have found that strength training specifically has really fixed through pregnancy. Like I didn't have them. And I'm sure you're feeling that way too. You're like, I don't have all those aches and pains. And so that's really awesome and such an awesome example. And are you working with anybody right now that is pregnant that you are helping through the same process, or is it anything like that?
I've had a lot of pregnancy clients. I don't think I have anyone right at the moment that is pregnant. And that was a little bit part of my shift.
Oh yes, because you've shifted.
Yeah. And it was not so much of like, I don't want to work with people who are pregnant and postpartum. I absolutely do. And if you're pregnant or postpartum and like want help with nutrition, like I'm still your girl. It was just more of like the people that are coming to me are just moms that are sick and tired of being at war with their bodies and fighting their bodies. And a lot of them are postpartum, and postpartum is like forever.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't end.
Yeah.
And so it's just, so to answer your question, not at the very moment, but I've had a lot of moms that, or I had one client specifically that she was really, really stressed out about gaining weight during pregnancy. And that was something we worked on all throughout her pregnancy, because it doesn't just go away. It's not just something that it can be like, don't worry about your weight. And suddenly that stress goes away. It's something that comes and goes. Body image is very fluid and flexible. There's days that are going to be super good. There's days that are going to be meh, and there's days that are going to be really, really hard. But one thing that she said is she was always so stressed out about like gaining so much weight and having a big baby, and that making her labor worse, not better, making her labor harder. But when her baby came out, he was perfect, and her body knew what to do to get baby out. And she was just amazed. And I was like, told you so. Like, but like, it's such a hard thing to wrap your brain around when for years and years and years, and even at doctor's appointments, a lot of times still, if you gain weight too quickly or too slowly, like it becomes a major stressor for you. And just like you said, whether you're stressing about food and whether you're stressing about ingredients in food or your weight, that stress is really hard on your body and hard on your digestion, if we want to get like all nutrition wise. And so by relieving some of that stress, it allows you to make different decisions because you're not making a decision out of fear and stress. And it also just supports just better overall health in your body, because stress is stress in your body, and your body hates stress, or just it doesn't promote positive things in your body. I don't know if that's the best way to say that.
Totally. So what's something that you're going to be doing or thinking about doing to prepare postpartum for your nutrition needs? What is a tip that you could give, or something that you're going to be doing to set yourself up to be able to have a variety of foods and healing foods postpartum?
Absolutely. This is something I'd like kind of start. So I'm like, I think I'm 28 weeks. I don't know. It's my third baby. I've lost count of weeks.
I never knew.
But this is something I like started thinking about of like, oh, when do I want to start like prepping everything? I am a huge fan of bone broth. And I know that's a little crunchy, but like it's so easy and really, really healing for your body and supportive for your body postpartum. So I'll be making lots and lots of batches of that. So it's stocked up in the fridge. I do some freezer meals, and making sure that like I have people to bring food soon after. Like that's something that I like to ask for. Like, and depending on, your situation, you may or may not have that. But if you have people around you, they want to support you and help your baby, help you with adjusting with your baby. Ask for food. It's okay.
Yeah.
Most people like want to bring you food, and it's not that big of a deal. So we do some freezer meals. I love the bone broth. I love doing like pork carnitas. just a really good source of protein. Got some collagen in there, just like the bone broth. And they're really handy for putting on like everything. You can do them on nachos or in burritos or salads or so it's a nice little variety there of it's not just a freezer meal that sits in your crock pot all day. um oh gosh, what else? Like I said, I'd kind of just barely started thinking about this. One of the best things that I think I do as far as freezer meals, I'm not like a take a whole Saturday and make a whole bunch of freezer meals. I like to pick some of the meals that we're already eating and just double them and then freeze half of it. And so I'll do that with like lasagna rolls, freeze really well, chilies, soups, the pork carnitas, and those things are all really easy to like make large batches of. And so it doesn't actually take any extra work or extra, maybe a little bit of extra planning as far as like buying more food when you're making it. But it just makes it super easy. And it's all things that, you know, I can pull out of the freezer and put in the crock pot with a baby in one hand. And yeah, another thing that I really like doing and recommending is having snack stashes.
For nursing.
Exactly. Or if you're just feeding a baby with a bottle, totally. Like no matter what, you're going to get trapped on the couch with a baby.
You're gonna be baby trapped no matter what.
Exactly. And so I tell my clients to pick like the 2 or 3 spots that they expect to get baby trapped, like their favorite spot on the couch, by their bed upstairs, or sorry, upstairs is in my house, by their bed, and maybe like one other spot, and have just a basket of like shelf stable snacks. And then having a fridge full of non-shelf stable snacks to give variety to, of like, if you don't know what, because if you've ever breastfed, you're so much hungrier breastfeeding than I think I ever was pregnant. And it just hits, and it is like the epitome of hangry.
Yeah, my poor family, man. Oh goodness. It's always like baby's crying. I have 2 other kids now. It's like they both need something, or one is pooping and needs me to wipe them, and I'm starving. You know how it goes. You need to have like something to grab.
Yeah. Easy food. And this is a big thing that I preach to all of my clients. I would so much rather you eat something than eat the right things.
Oh my gosh, yes.
I don't know if you're doing this as a video, but I'm using quotation marks when I say the right things. Like there's nothing that is going to be absolutely perfect for eating your postpartum. I had one client that was following a postpartum doula that talked a lot about, you know, like Eastern medicine and the healing properties of those foods, which I think is awesome. And it's not wrong. Like there is a lot of science even that we're coming out with that like Asian culture knows how to do postpartum.
Yeah,
like totally. They just do. But if doing postpartum that way stresses you out, or if that's not foods that are easy for you to access postpartum or make for yourself postpartum, then it's not beneficial for you to focus on that for postpartum.
It has to be sustainable.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, and that is that principle is what was running through my head when I was postpartum this past April from you, because of like the birth workshop we did together, but then also just what you post on social media where you're just like, just eat something, please feed your body. And that was really hard for me postpartum because I just really, obviously hunger from nursing, but I didn't have an appetite really. And it was so hard for me to want to eat anything. And then I would just have Macey in my head of like, just eat something. And so there was like one day you posted like tuna with like melted cheese and like there was cabbage or something else. And, and I was like, okay, that looks good. I'll just make that because that's me eating something. And then I ate that and I was like, I hope Macey's proud of me. I'm eating right now.
Absolutely, I am.
No, but it was such good advice because it sounds so simple. You're like, well, duh, eat, obviously. But it's like, no, like when you're in that moment, you're like, I don't feel like eating anything. And I don't want to like freak out about eating the right thing. Just eat something.
Yeah.
You'll feel better. And then you can decide if you want to eat something else that's more, quote, put together or whatever.
Absolutely.
You know? So it's well, and
advice. And intuitive eating, I think there's a big misconception with intuitive eating that it's all about just eating when you're hungry and stopping when you're full. And that's a huge part of it. But especially during pregnancy and postpartum, your hunger signals get thrown off for so many reasons. I mean,
Yeah.
nausea and heartburn and sleep and postpartum, like it's really common not to have hardly any appetite postpartum, but that doesn't mean your body doesn't need food.
Yeah.
And so part of intuitive eating is also connecting your body with your brain and understanding like, I know what foods are going to make me feel good. I know that eating is going to make me feel good. Or like with one of my clients the other day, she sent me a picture of a McDonald's sandwich, and she's like, I picked the sandwich with higher calories because I knew that I was going to need more energy to get me through my errands and like make it to lunch. And
Yes.
so sometimes it's knowing like I'm not hungry right in this moment, but I'm about to get baby trapped. And so I need to eat something, or nothing sounds good in this moment. Like first trimester, nothing ever sounds good, but like you still need to eat, and you'll feel so much better when you do eat. And then when you're fed and your brain is fed, it's so much easier to make hypothetically more put together meals later in the day
Yeah.
or after that. It's so much easier to be able to think clearly, to make more. I don't even think put together meals have to be a thing, but like
Yeah.
to be
Whatever
more
it is.
intentional with what you're putting on your plate and those choices, and to go more of like the Eastern medicine like side of food if you're like eating in the first place and feeding your brain.
Yeah.
And so it's a funny balance, but it's
Mhm.
just eat.
Yeah,
It
it's
sounds so
finding
simple, but it is hard.
yeah, it's finding like that low hanging fruit or lowering your
Hmm.
barrier of entry as much as you can to be able to be successful. And something else that you've said that sticks with me a lot is there's no such thing as failure. Because I feel like that was a mindset that I've worked through for many years of I ate this way today, so I definitely failed and I can't believe I did that. And, and I don't really do that now, but things sneak in and I'm like, oh, I totally failed that. Or especially it's for me, it's enough water. I struggle with my water intake, even though I like have my water bottle, like it's right there. You can't see it if you're listening. My water bottle's there, but is it filled up right now? No. And so it's like, I could get to the end of the day and be like, oh, I failed again with enough water. And it's like, there's no failure. You want to talk more about that?
Oh, absolutely. I think that mindset of, and a lot of times people identify it, or it's starting to be identified as like the all or nothing mindset. And it's so, so toxic because, like, with your kids, like, if they get a B on their test, you're not going to be like, you failed. You shouldn't stop trying. Right. And it's the same with your food and with your movement and with your body. Like, if you have a binge, like I have clients that binge, and even after we start working together, like their binges get farther apart, but like they still happen sometimes. But that's just a learning opportunity for them. It's a way for them to learn, like, okay, why did this happen? What was I coping with? And it's the
Mhm.
same with all of our habits. Like,
Yeah.
it's not just about one single action. There's no one single food that's going to make or break our health, and there's no single ounce of water that's going to magically cure us. Like, having goals and like striving to make adjustments and make changes is awesome, but there is no failure. It's all opportunities to learn, opportunities to adjust. And when you make that mindset shift, it's so much easier to give yourself the grace to continue moving forward and not just like say F it. I'm done. I don't need this anymore, which is
Yeah.
what diet culture tells us. Like, or 75 hard. I've been talking about 75 hard a lot lately. Like, if you mess up one day, then you have to start all over again. And life isn't like that. Like,
No,
the
life is not.
progress isn't like that. And so,
Yeah.
yeah, and that's a very, very common mindset that people have. And so, yeah, it's a tricky one to work through too, because I think we all have a little bit of a perfectionist inside of us, even if
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
not like a strong perfectionist, like it's
100%.
there. Yeah.
Something we all have to work through for sure.
Yeah.
And what you were saying parallels so well with a lot of things with postpartum, well, pregnancy, but and postpartum exercise of, um, I think about how you were saying, like, oh, this happened, so this means I failed. It reminds me of like how, oh, I'm having some sort of pelvic floor symptom. I must have done something, so I'm failing. Or, oh, it's this exercise's fault, or this is going to break me, and like this and that. And it's like, yeah, there really isn't one exercise that is going to break you. There isn't one food that was going to break you. If you're having symptoms, it doesn't mean you failed. It just means that's, like you said, information. Okay, that's information for me to adjust. If I leak during this movement, then I'm going to adjust this. It's the exact same thing with our nutrition. I love how there's so much overlap in every aspect of our health. And it also then reminds us that our health is so much more than specifically what's being put in my mouth and specifically how I'm moving my limbs, essentially,
Yeah.
right? And like, there's so much to do with health besides those two things. Those are big things, but there's a lot of things.
Yeah. One thing that I really like that I've seen a lot of is there's different aspects of health. There's your physical health, your mental health, your emotional health, your social health. I feel like there might be one more that I'm missing, but if any changes you make in your physical health affect your social health or your mental health, it's no longer healthy.
Mm-hmm.
And so like health is so much broader than we think it is. We think it's exercise, we think it's nutrition, and both those things are so important.
They are.
But if you are exercising at the expense of, your period, or if you're exercising at the expense of spending time with your family, if you're eating to an extent that you can't go out to a restaurant with your friends and have a social meal with your friends, then that's affecting other aspects of your health and it's no longer healthy.
Oh,
And
yeah.
it's so much to take into account, and there's so many different factors that influence it. But yeah,
And
it's
sleep. What's sleep?
yeah, oh yeah, absolutely. If you're exercising so much that you can't sleep, like,
Oh,
or you
gosh.
don't not getting enough sleep, oof.
Right.
But I feel like too, and this is kind of just a side note to something you said earlier, um, but like working on my relationship with food and my body has helped me so much with my relationship with exercise. Like during those weeks that I like physically could not exercise because I physically could not stand up for more than like 5 minutes. Um, it was actually really easy for me to be like, it's okay. It's okay. I didn't have any guilt over it. I didn't have any stress about, am I going to be able to get back into my
Right.
routine? It was very easy to just be like, I'm feeling better now and I'm going to just go back to the gym because
Yes.
it feels good. And it wasn't like because I missed 2 weeks of exercise. Cause I think with my first cold, I like didn't go to the gym for like 2 or 3 weeks. Like it knocked me out hard. But it was really easy the next week to be like, I feel good. And we're going to work into exercise maybe a little slower than I would have liked to, but it was easy to just jump right back into it and not have any guilt or shame over those weeks, those full weeks that I wasn't able to do it. So it
Yes.
all overlaps so much.
So much. The all or nothing mindset is just something you need to not have in any part of your life.
Absolutely.
And you're describing what I like to talk about as athletic maturity. We get to a point where we have goals, we want to reach them, we will work hard for them, but we are not going to belittle ourselves or worry about the days where we are taking care of our body in a different way, which when we're sick, it's resting, you know? And so I think that is something that I have seen is very difficult for people to do. Very difficult to get to that place of athletic maturity and getting rid of the all or nothing mindset when it comes to our nutrition, because we want to be perfect because the world has told us you have to have the perfect body, so you have to be perfect to do that, right?
Well, and honestly, to have the world standard of what a perfect body is, you do have to eat like ridiculously perfect.
Yeah,
Like,
like it's
and
not fun.
no, it is no way to live your life. Like,
No.
nor is it healthy. In my opinion.
Yeah, well, and it's all, in what, and we all make our own specific decisions about nutrition for what is best for us in that moment too, because there can't be like one rule, one way of like you can't if it's kind of like a weird diet culture thing where people got to the point where it's like, oh, if you're saying no to a cookie, that means that you obviously are just like, what am I trying to say? Like, oh, diet culture is winning because, or anti-diet culture is winning because you're saying no to the cookie. But in reality, that might be the right decision for that person in that time to say no to the cookie, right? It's like not
Absolutely.
like a one set thing. I don't know if any of that made sense. I hope you understand what I'm trying to say.
No, totally. I think it's hard because um there's that fine line between like, am I, well, and it's very much internal. Like, what's going on inside of you is so much more important than the actual decision that you make. So like with the cookie example, my kid offers me a cookie sometimes, and sometimes I just don't want it. It doesn't sound good. I know it's not going to be satisfying, or I just had a cookie. I don't want another one. But like if cookies are something that you've restricted and you're making that decision out of guilt of, oh, I've already eaten a
Oh
cookie
yeah,
today, I
yeah.
can't have another cookie, then it totally changes why the decision is made. And so individuals making those decisions and being aware of what's going on inside of you and what's contributing to that decision is way more important than like the actual decision in the
Yes.
long run. Is that kind of where you were
Yeah,
going
I'm
with
so
that?
glad that you were able to explain that because my brain was like not computing what I wanted to say. But yeah, that's basically what I was saying is like every decision is individual, it's internal, it's based on circumstances in our own lives, and we don't need to have external things telling us how we should be making those decisions about food or exercise or whatever it is. So,
Absolutely.
yeah.
I think we rely way too much on external of like what people think of me. Are people going to think that me going for seconds is just ridiculous? Are people going to think that I'm on a diet because I said no to the cookie?
Right.
And that's sometimes it's tricky. Like with my kids, sometimes I want my kids to grow up knowing that mom ate all the foods,
Mm-hmm.
that she wanted. And so sometimes with my kids, if we're on cookies, my kids like cookies. Sometimes I will like accept the cookie, even if it's not something that I really, really want, just because I want them to see that like it's okay to eat the
Yeah,
cookie.
100%.
And we have a lot of conversations about it too. So that's not something that I feel the need to do often,
Yes.
or super frequently. It's not like I'm eating an absurd amount of cookies just to prove to my kids that I ate cookies.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and then sometimes if I really don't want something, I'll just explain to them that it doesn't sound good to me, or that I want something else. And
Yeah.
that, but it's when you start to explain those things to your kids, it really makes you think about why you're doing them too.
Mhm.
And it's really fun practice.
It is. And I love that we've kind of come full circle and like intuitive eating and back to what we're passing on to our kids and that we can have these conversations with them. I have these conversations often of, um, I don't treat treats as anything that's off limits or even that's anything that's, oh, it's so special. It's just part of our food. And we have them
Hmm.
sometimes, we have not have them sometimes. And so it's like never like that scarcity mindset of like, I never get this, so I'm gonna like sneak 10 of them or whatever. It's just like, oh, we have cookies and that's cool. And like they're just there. And it's nice that they don't have to feel like they have to sneak or feel like they are only allowed to have them at certain times. And yeah, they are, we do encourage them to have them at certain times, whatever, because of
Yeah.
wanting to eat other things. But just the whole mindset thing though, of like explaining that to them, of being able to just have a common sense mindset around food, basically.
Yeah. One of the phrases I use a lot with my almost 6-year old is I trust you to listen to your body. And
Yes.
part of
Yes.
that phrase is me convincing myself that I trust that he's going to listen to his body. And part of it is also reminding him like to tune in and check, okay, am I listening to my
Yes.
body? And
I do the
it's
same
definitely
thing.
a practice thing, but it's stressful as parents because our kids do gravitate towards sweeter things. And we're all raised that we're eating too much sugar, and it's very likely that we are, but like having a positive relationship with the sugar or a neutral relationship with the sugar is so much more important than the quantity that they're eating in this single day.
Yeah.
One thing that I've actually really liked normalizing with my kids, and I did this kind of at the same time that I worked on it with me because of cutting out Coke for my first pregnancy. I realized it was probably been about a year ago that when we would go to my in-laws' house, they always have pop, and I would drink so much pop up at their house. And so I realized that I had a problem. And so I started normalizing Coke for me in my life. And we would go through the McDonald's drive through because McDonald's has cheap pop. But for them too, it was a really good experience because I'd get them like a little root beer. And we've got to the point where my son will just turn down pop randomly
Mhm.
just because he doesn't want it. It doesn't sound
Yeah.
good. Or there's quite frequently, it's very frequent that when we get them, they don't finish them, even
Yeah.
like the little pops. And so little things like that just show me like they are listening to their bodies. They are fully capable of making those decisions. It's about what we offer them as parents and how we frame our words around food. And no matter what, they're going to be exposed to a lot of crap.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
and by crap, I mean like negative messages about food. And so having those conversations in your home are super, super important. But
Yeah.
it's all practice.
Yeah. How we talk about food, how we talk about ourselves.
Mhm.
Yeah, my kids are the same way with trees. So they're just like, yeah, I want it or I don't want it. Or my second is a food monster. He absolutely loves everything. And he will eat. He'll eat his whole meal and then come sit next to me, want to eat mine. But he does at the same time, he's only 2.5. He knows when his body's full. And it's really cool because my 5-year-old's getting really good at it. He'll say, Mama, my body is full now, and his bowl may not be empty. And I was like, okay, you don't want any more bites and you're full? And he's like, I'll have one more bite and then I'll be full. And I was like, okay. And it's no pressure of like, oh, you need to finish your plate. And like, it's so cool
Mhm.
because he's like, yeah, I'm full and I'm good. And then it is really cool to be able to see that in our own kids, that we are passing that on and pioneering this new generation to have a positive relationship with food, with exercise, with their bodies. Oh man, we could talk all day about not commenting on people's bodies.
we could,
But
we
we're
could
going,
just don't do it.
yeah, we'll save that for another time. But just all the things that are so positive for our health and their health and your pregnancies, especially because pregnancy and postpartum are unique seasons that have unique circumstances. And so if we can create these positive or at least neutral mindsets around all these things, it will make us have chill pregnancies and chill postpartums. Pregnancy and postpartum is still wild. There's still a lot that we cannot control. But if we have, things more, figured out in our minds about how we believe or how we see things, it can make those unique seasons maybe a little less stressful.
Absolutely. And less hard on our mental health
Yeah. Mental
because
health is
it
big.
pregnancy and postpartum are hard on your mental health
So hard.
no matter how good they go.
Yeah. I mean,
And so if
I'm
you're yeah.
seriously, go ahead.
So if you're not like extra stressed about your body and you're not underfeeding your brain, like it's just one less layer of stress for your mental health to deal with,
Yeah.
and that can be super powerful.
Yeah. And like that is why you do what you do, because there's so much that you could essentially take off another mom's plate to be like, you don't need to worry about X, Y, and Z. Let me help you to be successful in this. And so that's what you do in your coaching. And to this end, do you want to talk a little bit more about your program and what coaching you offer?
Yeah, absolutely. Currently, I do one-on-one sessions, and we focus on adding foods into your meals as well as building and rebuilding your relationship with food and your body. practicing intuitive eating principles and working through fear foods and disordered eating patterns, kind of all of the things we've talked about. It's very customized to what you're experiencing in your life and what you need in this phase of life. But then I try to make it also very like a framework that's very transferable, so that when you get past the postpartum or the early postpartum stage of life and you feel like there's more that you can do, you know what to do next, and you know what to add, and know what direction you want to take your nutrition in. But like we've been saying before, it's super, super chill. For being a dietitian, I think about food not a lot. And I think as moms, and I think I said this earlier too, we have so many other things to think about and so many other important things to think about, that I don't want you to be spending all of your time thinking about food. And so it's very chill, very relaxed. And so I do one-on-one sessions, and then part of that also includes like I have pre-recorded modules that are just little extra tidbits of education. Those are actually still focused on pregnancy and postpartum because I haven't refilmed them. So there's lots of overlap there. And if you are in the midst of pregnancy and you need help managing nausea or heartburn, I love doing that too. Those are major quality of life factors, and they affect your nutrition in so many different ways. And taking Tums is not a plan to deal with your heartburn. Please don't do it.
No.
Or don't overdo it, I guess. I'm not totally opposed to Tums, but there's other ways. Anyway, so yes, it's very customized. I do one-on-one sessions. I do offer a free consultation. So if you're feeling like we might vibe, but have questions about, what you need help with, or if I can help you with your goals, feel free to, I don't know, are you going to post we can post a link to that. I don't know.
Yeah.
How you want to do that.
Where can we find you then online?
Online, I'm on Instagram at Macey.LathamRDN. I do also have a website that is also still focused on pregnancy and postpartum because I haven't quite updated that yet. And it's MaceyLathamNutrition.com. And you can find the link to my free consultation both on Instagram and my link in my bio, as well as on my website. Yeah. Perfect. I think those are the easiest. Or you can message me on Instagram. I'm pretty friendly.
Yeah, you are pretty friendly. Yes. Yes. Thank you so much for this awesome conversation. I will put where you can find Macey in the show notes. And thank you for joining me for another episode.